All right. We'll go ahead and call this regular board meeting for March 22nd, 2022 to order. All board directors are currently present. We'll go ahead and move to welcoming guests and welcome message. Welcome all guests this evening. So these community agreements, I want to give just a little bit of background information. Our community agreements as leaders who've been trained to lead with racial equity. These agreements were first introduced to us in our very first Puget Sound ESD training. During that time, our training as a board, we went over the importance of utilizing a land acknowledgement and really what a land acknowledgement is, really taking the time and understanding, as well as the courageous conversation agreements that as leaders, it is our responsibility to model and to practice with racial equity. And so these community agreements are to stay engaged, experience discomfort and vulnerability, to speak your truth, and to expect and accept non-closure. We'll go ahead and move along to the land recognition with Director Morris.
I needed to get unmuted, sorry. We in the Tukwila School District acknowledge that the land where we teach, collaborate, learn, and play is the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and the Muckleshoot people, past and present, and to honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish and Muckleshoot tribes. As a public school district, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of this land, and we recognize the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people who have been living and working here since time immemorial.
Next, we'll go ahead and I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 We'll move along to public comment. And this evening, we have begun implementing the new public comment process. So any typed public comments to be read would have been submitted by noon today. We will also have the ability to entertain public comments done orally as well. And so in a few moments, if anyone who is attending this evening would like to do an oral public comment, you could go ahead and in the chat feature, feel free to type your name and let us know so you can be called on. There also will be another opportunity at the end of the meeting to do the same thing, so that if during the meeting you decide that you would like to say something, there will be an opportunity in the public chat towards the end of the meeting to put your name in there so we know you'd like to speak, and we'll go ahead and do that. So we'll move along to the public comment. Ms. Kaur, is there any public comments?
I did not receive any written comments. Give me a moment to open the chat. Oh, it is open. To see if anyone wants to participate in a verbal comment to the board.
All right, then we'll move along to reports. The first is Dr. Herndon's Superintendent Report.
Good evening. Thank you, all guests and board directors. I always appreciate the opportunity to be present at these meetings and share a couple of the updates that are going on. For the superintendent's report, there are a few items that we've been working on. Actually have a meeting this Friday to resume our SRO conversations with students. Those have been kind of delayed a little bit over the last 6 weeks or so. but we are getting that date out. That'll happen before spring break. And so we're making sure that we connect with our students. After we're done, they'll have that same process that other folks had. We'll bring the stakeholders all back together and then get all of that feedback. I'll also provide that to the board, and then have a conversation with TPD about what the future of school resources officers might look like in Tukwila, how it might be different. So we'll engage in additional conversation. We can bring several stakeholders together to have that conversation together. These listening sessions have been kind of by stakeholder, just so that we could hear that from them. For students, they'll have that opportunity just to be with students, because I think it's important for us to get their voice in there. But I know sometimes having other adults in there can make it intimidating for them. So we want to create an opportunity that optimizes their participation, their ability to be able to participate and give us some feedback, and then come back later and participate in what things might actually look like. So we're excited about that. So more after Friday, and then we'll get some dates and advertisements out. We're also in process for the strategic plan, which is an extremely important step for the district. We have contracted with CEE, Center for Educational Effectiveness, out of the University of Washington. We had our first session on Friday with administrators. That was the first team. And I had the opportunity to have a conversation with Mr. Steech afterwards. It was yesterday afternoon, to talk about how that session went and how things might be different for other various stakeholder groups. So I know one of the very intentional pieces that the board had talked about when we looked at this contract was intentional outreach within the community. And it's an important piece. So he's going to start that process this week with some intentional outreach to different community members. We have a list that we will be giving him, and then hopefully in those conversations with those folks, city, churches, Tukwila Children's Foundation, our family liaisons, a couple of our pre-K programs, Voices of Tomorrow, hopefully our Head Start families. By outreaching intentionally to them, hopefully he's able to garner even more communities or individuals or groups that he can outreach to. So that's an important step, just to make sure that we have that happening as well. And so those meetings should also be happening over the next several weeks. There'll be some before spring break and probably some after spring break. And then the idea is to bring that feedback to the board and then help shape what that strategic plan will look like, and have that finalized before we're done with the school year. So there's a lot of work still to be done. It's really important work, and it's important that we get excellent feedback from a variety of stakeholders. So I just want to make sure that we are being as intentional as possible, and that anybody who wants to participate is going to have that opportunity. So I know we have to be intentional with that outreach. We do some of the things when we outreach anyway, but we know that doesn't hit enough of the people. So we really want to maximize this opportunity, because this is really shaping what kind of the direction and priorities are that we're going to be focusing on for the next several years. That shapes our budget, it shapes our professional development, all of those items. So it's an extremely important step. And then we are just doing, I know Director Larson will be talking about the legislative report and wrap up, but we are also taking a look at what the outcomes of some of those legislative items are, including impacts to budgets. There were a couple pieces. One item that we were really eyeing was developmental kindergarten, or not developmental kindergarten, sorry, transitional kindergarten, which means enrolling students as soon as they turn 5. Most school districts kind of have a cutoff date, August 31st, middle of September, and they enroll students in kindergarten at that time. And then if your birthday happens to be after that date, you kind of have to wait until the next year, or you could apply for early entrance. But several districts had started to move into enrolling students as soon as they turned 5. So there was no cutoff date. I mean, other than probably starting a kindergartner in April or May or something like that, or June. But Bellingham School District has been doing this for at least a decade, and it really helps prepare students as they come into the school and get them prepared, and helps with things like pre-K costs for families as well, or childcare settings. However, there was an action in that there's a bit of a challenge between OSPI and the Department of Youth Family Services. And so there's kind of a suspension of that ability to do the transitional kindergarten. So a lot of districts have been starting to move that way. And now there's some things that need to be ironed out for that. We were eyeing that for Tukwila as well, but now we kind of have to wait and see what's happening with this language at the state level that may allow us for that to happen. Those are the major pieces that we have. I'm following up just on other items. Last week was in schools on several different occasions. And it's just good to be out and be able to see students and staff in the classroom. So they've been great visits. That's all I have for this report.
Okay. The COVID-19 report.
Yeah, I can do the update for this one as well. So we continue to make sure that we're well stocked in our personal protective equipment, and we are definitely keeping a close eye on any of the data trends for, I know there's concerns around the next variant, the BA2 variant. So we're watching that closely. The cases for Washington and King County continue to decline even with this variant. So, and I know there's a lot of conversation about what's happening over in Europe. So we're definitely keeping an eye on that. Currently, we have 2 cases in the school district, only 2 students that are out on quarantine. So we really hope that this trend continues in that direction, and that this new variant doesn't pose new problems or a new spike, but it is something we're obviously going to watch very closely and make sure that we are as prepared as possible. Definitely conversations with King County Department of Health and any information that the University of Washington also can provide. We're so lucky to be in an area with such strong research around this particular topic. So University of Washington is instrumental in information that they give out. Additionally, I know there's been some conversation, or at least I've been reading some news articles about the federal government, their ability to continue to pay for vaccination shots. We continue to try and partner with folks and are continuing to offer our vaccination clinics about every 3 weeks. So those have been going well. We've also had conversations with the city of Tukwila and King County just about additional items that we would have even after COVID. So there's not a lot to report on these things, but a lot of eyes watching current trends that may be happening. So we're trying to be as prepared as possible. And so far the data is still trending in a great direction. So we want to continue that. But we know this, this particular virus is not done. And we're really hoping that anything new is just not as impactful as the last 2 years have been. So that's what we have on the COVID report.
A quick question, if I may.
Sure.
Always a question about COVID. Sorry, Dr. Herndon.
That's okay.
So as you know, and I shared with you, kind of going into this new wave of removing masks, kind of one of my biggest concerns was the mental health piece around that, perhaps, and just kind of some anxieties that may bring up. So I'm curious, as you said, you've been in some schools, or you've been in the schools over the last week or two. I'm curious to know kind of like, what have you been noticing? How are people feeling? And then if you've gotten anything back in those staff surveys as it relates to mask usage.
No, so we'll probably run another survey later this week just about that. As you know, the survey we did about 2 weeks ago is about 50-50. What I did notice, and just in conversations with principals as well, is I've walked around, definitely more students wearing masks than not wearing masks. A couple of the classrooms I was in, though, I was in a kindergarten classroom, it was about 60-40. And that was last week. So I did notice when I was out on Monday last week, kind of our first day, there were fewer students not wearing masks or staff. As the week went on, the numbers went up a little bit with more people not wearing masks. And I think it's a good trend to continue to watch and see how things are going. And I saw kind of different settings out at recess, at lunch. There are a couple of students just that I checked in with, and they seemed fine not wearing a mask. They totally respected anybody's choice to wear a mask, which was good too. And again, because so many people are wearing them, I don't think it stands out too much, but it's definitely something that we want to continue to watch and make sure that people are okay both ways, that people who choose not to wear a mask also aren't, made to feel a certain way. And that people who are wearing masks, I mean, they could have all sorts of reasons about why they want to wear a mask. So it's definitely something we want to continue to check in with, even with the staff as well. So I know that some staff are wearing them, a good number are, some are not. So it's something that we'll put out there again. I think the surveys are just, again, another kind of good check-in point just to see how people are feeling. And as these weeks go on, depending on what's happening with trends, we'll also see what's happening with usage or how people are feeling about that. So that's what I've observed, and just a little bit of feedback. I appreciate the question though. It's a good one to continue to check in on. So thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and move along to director reports. We'll begin with Director Hoover, District 1.
Forgot we're going in order now. Okay, so mine will be quite a little bit short. Just been kind of in two primary things that I've spent some time on over the last month, and I've also been out of town. So that's kind of I've been working a little bit less because I've been in Costa Rica. I still am actually until tomorrow. But two things I've been working on that have been really exciting. As I mentioned in my last report, some work around gender inclusion around the district. And so just to provide a quick update on where I'm at with that. I just kind of finally got the go-ahead late last week to really start the work in the schools. So in any school administrators, if you're on here, be ready for an email from me in the next week or so to hopefully set up some time to start chatting with you about what gender inclusion could look like within your building, what's already happening there. And then I've been working really closely with folks at Foster. So with Mr. Blanton, as well as a few of the teachers, primarily in the history department, and then a few really fabulous students that have been leading the way and advocating to open gender inclusive restrooms at Foster. And so again, been working with Mr. Blanton on some professional development that's going to be happening around gender coming up here at the beginning of April. I'm really excited about it's kind of going to be a small little series of learning opportunities for teachers, and then as well as working with a few of the history teachers to create some student lessons to kind of help young people have a space to be able to kind of talk about and ask questions around gender. And then this hope is still to be able to open the gender inclusive restrooms by the end of April, really hoping that our graduating seniors will get to experience that, and because it's something that they've been advocating for. So that's kind of been the biggest bucket of work that I've been doing. Sorry. I'm actually just going to leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Director Hoover. Director Bowler-Jack.
Thank you. Yeah, first I want to open up with, continued regret for the harm that was done a month ago at a board meeting when I told a story that caused harm to people. I want to open up the invitation to anyone who would like to sit down and chat with me and talk about that harm and any resolution. I have reached out to the signers on the letters calling for my resignation, and hopefully we'll be able to speak with some of those. I also have been working on the multi-language learner committee and continue to work on that. It used to be called dual language. Continuing to work on that. I also want to highlight some things that are going on in the community because I think they serve our families and students. You may have seen on Como TV today that the Tukwila Pantry was highlighted, serving so many of our families. We also met with the city last night to talk about a tiny home project that will be coming onto the campus to serve the folks living in unsheltered in our city. Also, the cottage project that's been in the works for years is finally going to break ground. That'll be 20 new homes for folks in our community, 3 and 4 bedroom homes at an affordable cost. Also, the garden that we've had in the back there for a while, that's been gone now for 2 summers, will be reinvented again. I know a lot of our families gardened and grew the vegetables from that they were familiar with, and I'm hoping that they will come back. It was a beautiful community effort. All of this is in an effort to remove barriers for folks, whether there's some systemic or personal barriers. Also been working on the Raise the Wage Tukwila project to go before the voters next fall to raise the wages in Tukwila to match or at least be closer to the wages, the minimum wages in Seattle and SeaTac. So we aren't this little sliver of land with really low wages. We want to get those wages up for our families. Also working on the Rotary Scholarship in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce. So that'll be a new scholarship coming out for our students. And also the last thing I'll mention is we continue to serve about 20 refugee families a week, whether they're refugees from south of our southern border or from Afghanistan, or the new ones that we are seeing coming in from Ukraine. We're serving them with household goods and clothing and a new community support system. So I think that's what I will offer for today. It's busy. It's a good time. It's a hard time, but I'm really grateful to be in this wonderful city of Tukwila. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Buller-Jack. I'll go ahead for District 3. So for this report, I am going to center amazing scholar leaders in our district and also update in response to what students had questions about or wanted to have a response to. So that's so the first thing is this last Monday, the community-based restorative meeting in practice called Steering Together was centered and led by the students at Showalter Middle School. And ahead of time, students completed a survey in which what they would want adults to know about where things are, how are they doing, and have the opportunity to also read through those survey entries. And top of the list is really understanding how hard it's been and how much mental, like in terms of mental health, in terms of just being tired and how tough it's been, and it still is for students, and that students are doing the best that they can, and students are showing up, and despite the challenges, they're showing up to learn. Also, what came through through those questionnaires, and when the students were doing their student panel to share, that they really want educators of color. They want people in the building who have lived experiences and also mentors and amazing leaders to look up to, and also want to be acknowledged and want to be listened to. especially when there are hurtful things happening or students are being silenced, dismissed, and ignored. So that was just a really powerful, amazing event. I just want to send out my thanks to all the student groups that were part of that, and learned tremendously from you, and hope to continue to serve, to have the very best education, because you're so worth it. You're worthy of it, and you're so deserving of it. Another amazing student opportunity was Puget Sound Educational Service District had a student-led conference. So student leaders from multiple districts, including our district, put on a student conference, and I had the opportunity, I was invited along with one other board director from Highline School District to serve on a leadership panel and talk about, and they really asked excellent questions as to, what do we think about integrating student voice, student input, and student really wisdom into decision-making processes. What types of structures do we have in our district that actually allow for that? And learn tremendously from other districts. So I got to hear from Highline, whose superintendent actually has a youth advisory council or team that they meet with quarterly, or whenever there are important matters that they want input on. Then also another amazing thing that's happening in another district is at the building level, there are student advisory groups to work with the principals and admin within the building to make sure that when decisions are being made, or what are things that we're not considering, unintended consequences, things like that. Just fabulous. That was absolutely amazing what the students put on, and it was an honor to get to be part of that and truly learned a lot. The next thing that I'm going to share is in response to students. In the fall, we heard from seniors at Foster, plus recently at Showalter, and truthfully, all students in our buildings have asked, including families, have asked for more mental health resources and mental health promotion within the district. And Naisha Fort Brooks and I had an opportunity to meet with about 20 public health, mental health folks that do community programming. And the conversation was really centered on what can be done in Tukwila and who needs to be at the table for this conversation. So it was sort of just an initial getting to know you, and then also thinking about what can be done, what is out there, and who are our stakeholders and who are go-to people. So not a lot of answers, more questions at this point, but the fact to meet up with about 20 public health folks and know that other districts, other cities have stuff going on, we are absolutely worthy of some additional resources in our district, and our students are asking for it. So as leaders, what are we doing to respond to that? And I think I'll pause there. There's other things, but we'll pause for this month, and we'll go ahead and move along to Director Morris.
I would just like to comment that I really made an effort to get out into a lot of the schools. I just, every time I go to Foster, I'm just in awe at how gracious the students are and how they greet you with such warmth, and they open doors, they chat with you. It's just really nice to see all that friendliness and sincere care that the students show. And I find that in the other buildings too, but it especially stands out at Foster because probably because some kids are bigger, but they're just more demonstrative about it. So kudos to the teachers for reinforcing that and the students for instigating it.
All right, thank you, Director Morris. Director Larson.
Thank you. So I wanted to just, I think at last meeting, I was kind of volunteered to try and collect some information to get back, kind of close the feedback loop with the students from the civics classes that we got together with, and heard various comments, and concerns and issues that came up. And so what I'd like to do is try and see if we could assemble over the next month or so a list of things that are going on that kind of directly address some of the concerns that they brought up. So I guess I'd just like to ask all the other board members and also Dr. Herndon, if you're aware of things that are going on that address those issues, if you could just send it to me and I'll try and get them collected in one place. I know, Director Hoover is working on the gender bathroom issues. And there's lots of other things. I know there's things going on. The students had a number of concerns around the health issues, the food service issues, and I know there's things going on in a variety of those things. So anyway, if everybody could just send me those things and I'll try and collate them and try and see if we can get them into one response coming back. I attended, I was a panelist on a webinar that the League of Education Voters gave related to the legislative session. And I was talking primarily around the staffing. This is House Bill 1664, which is going to increase the staffing in areas of counselors, social workers, psychologists, and nurses. And it was a good, it was interesting. The League of Education Voters always does a good job. They had students there, they had community-based organizations, folks there, people from the state as well. So it was a good forum to get the message out about, which I was trying to get out, was the message about we need much more equity in the funding system, particularly with regard to these support staff. And so anyway, that was a good experience. I was also, there's a group that the Roadmap Project has called Data Advisors Group, and that I get with once a quarter or so. And it was interesting. They assembled the folks from the 7 districts in South King County that are part of the Roadmap Project: Auburn, Kent, Renton, Federal Way, Highline, Tukwila, and Seattle. And they were talking about online school options. So it was interesting because a lot of all the districts, in particular Highline, Federal Way, Renton, Kent, have significant online school options available to students kind of at all levels from elementary on up. And I guess I'm not, and this is kind of a request, I guess, to Dr. Herndon to see if we could get a presentation at a future board meeting about, what the online school options that we have available. I know we were working with some outside folks, but there's some pretty good uptake in some of these online school options as people are feeling a little bit, cautious about sending necessarily their students back to full-time. Hopefully, COVID will be fading off as we go forward, but there's seems to be a pretty big demand in the surrounding districts for online school options. So it'd be interesting to hear about what's going on with that. The other meeting I was part of was the Budget Advisory Committee in our district is meeting, led by our CFO, Ms. Birdsong. And the last meeting we had a list of discussing the various ideas that we're coming out with about how to spend some of the ESSER dollars, that is the COVID relief dollars that are coming from the federal government. And Ms. Birdsong has been doing a really good job of getting out, talking to lots of different groups in the district, and has a long list of ideas, which she's in the process of sorting through and categorizing, and hopefully we'll take a look at those sometime in the not too distant future, as well as, I guess, the other thing I'll just request, not right now, but from Ms. Birdsong, when we talk about these things, is it would be good to have a list of all the different groups. I think the board would be interested in knowing all the different groups that you've talked through and gotten ideas from. I think that will be helpful as we work through the budget and kind of decide how we should allocate the ESSER dollars. So That's my director's report.
All right, we'll move along to the student representative report. So Mr. Fiapito.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my report, well, my report is, my first part of my report is what we've been doing in leadership. So the past week, we wanted to do some kindness projects, you know, to like, to make our students feel good as well as our overall student body. So I believe on Monday last week, we were giving out free hot cocoa as well as cookies, and then on Thursday, I think, yeah, on St. Patrick's Day, we gave out little cards that said "Have a lucky day," and it had like a lollipop attached to it. So yeah, that's what we've been working on in leadership, and I feel like it was nice to do because many times when we do fundraisers, we're always asking students for stuff. So it was nice to give away stuff to students, and yeah, we were hoping like to make their day and stuff. Another thing that we've been working on in leadership is planning prom. Currently, we have a venue, and I believe it will take place in May. And we're just, yeah, we've been working on that. And as well as the mask mandate, I feel like the transition from masks being optional has been smooth because I feel like majority of our student body still wears masks, but only certain students still wear masks. But I feel like they feel like they're like that they're not like doing something bad while not wearing their mask. And yeah, so the issues going on in our schools, I don't know if you guys are aware, but there was a protest that today that included the students of Foster as well as Showalter, and the protest was against sexual assault allegation towards a student. And yeah, so that was like the major pressing issue that went on today. And yeah, it's been, well, today has been wild, like everything. Yeah, everything has been wild, like many students at our school, like we were able to get feedback. Well, one of my teachers was able to get feedback, and many students don't feel safe because of these allegations. And I wanted to ask, with everything that's going on, like what do you guys plan on to resolve this issue that caused the protest today?
Thank you, Samuel, for the question. I'm gonna sort of ask Dr. Herndon. I'm not aware of, I don't have information at this point. So I think maybe gather up information is one thing that I'm gonna do.
Yep, that's what we'll be doing. And then, you know, we have information going out to parents about that as well. But I appreciate you bringing that attention to the so.
Yeah, and I had a few ideas. Like I have a few ideas written down. I wrote down maybe bring more awareness to this issue, like have advisory lessons to educate students why sexual assault is not okay, and maybe have repercussions as well as consequences for the students who did these actions. And yeah. And yeah, well, that was the major issue that occurred today in our schools, and it's been quite a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, Samuel. Yeah, harassment is on a continuum, right? So like everything from bullying, and there's all different forms of harassment as well. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Does the board have any other answers for Samuel?
Well, I was, when I heard about this, I went and kind of was checking our policies. So we have obviously policies on the issue, procedures on the issue, and there's kind of always three things. There's policy, procedure, and then there's how it's implemented. And so I think it would be good to have a review of all of those three to see if they're going to be, if they need any updating or not. So that's along with the investigation. I think it would be good to have us take a look at that whole issue and make sure that what we have in place is or how, if anything we have in place could be improved, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I agree.
In addition to that, and you know, Sam, I'm not sure what's happening
Mhm.
already around this, but you know, what sort of educational opportunities or even discussions around social media,
Mhm.
and how to, you know, yeah, just how to effectively use social media and things
Mhm.
like, I don't know, just are those kinds of conversations happening at all in school?
To be honest, no, and I feel like that's something that needs to happen within our schools. Like we should be talking about. Well, I feel like for a number of years back then, we would talk about bullying and about how social media should be used correctly. But I feel like that's something that we should start enforcing within our advisory lessons, and students are being reminded that certain stuff is not okay. And yeah.
Yeah, and just how common, right? Like in terms of when
Mhm.
you think about all, you know, all different forms of harassment, harm, abuse. There's just all
Yeah.
there's such opportunities to actually begin the healing of it, which would be the, you know, talking about it, a culture of
Mhm.
being able to talk about it, a culture that when, you know, when you see something, say something,
Mhm.
to really acknowledge that every single student, staff, family has a voice
Uh-huh.
and their experience matters, right? And so
Mhm.
I think that there's opportunities here, Samuel, and I really
Uh-huh.
appreciate you bringing it up and sort of
Yeah.
getting us started on that
Yeah.
conversation too. So
Mhm. Yeah. And I just wanted to add, yeah, I feel like another thing that should be implicated is like maybe like having mental health days where it's like more calm, because I feel like our students are literally like working hard every single day, and many times they lose motivation. And I feel like, yeah,
mhm,
maybe we could implement like ways students can get support for their mental health, whether it just be like class circles or like, yeah, just talking about what they're going through. And yeah. And I feel like, especially
mhm.
with this issue, I feel like a lot of students have so many emotions going, as well as the idea of school, and that we're almost to the end. Well, we're kind of to the end of the school year, as well as the stuff they're dealing with personally. And yeah, that's my report.
Mhm. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move along to legislative report with Director Larson.
So, and this, the report I put in this week, I took off all the bills that had died and just left the bills that are still, almost all of them are still awaiting the governor's signature. So they aren't, they've been passed by the House and the Senate, but they're waiting the governor's signature, which hopefully should come in the next week or two. The one thing, the one bill the governor did sign, I'll talk about a little bit, is the one at the bottom, HB 1878. And this is going to have, I think, a pretty big impact on our district, because it basically is requiring schools with over 40% free and reduced lunch students to provide free meals for all students starting next year. And so all of our schools meet that criteria. So this will eliminate having to keep track of individual students and whether they qualify or don't qualify for free and reduced, because everybody will get the free meals. So we won't have to be talking about charging rates and all that kind of stuff. So it's good. The implications of it are a little bit interesting on our other funding streams, because we have a lot of funding streams that are dependent upon this free and reduced lunch count. And so the legislature kind of took that into account. So we'll be able to, when we go into this free meals practice for all of our schools, we'll be able to use the free and reduced lunch count that we had this year for the next few years with regard to state funding, like the LAP program, Learning Assistance Program, the high poverty program. Another one that's important to our teachers, we have a lot of teachers that have been board certified. And if you're board certified and you teach at a high poverty school, which is all of our schools, you get an additional $5,000 each year. And so that program will also be covered under the old, our current free and reduced lunch percentage. Now, that will run out over time. And so then what is going to replace the counts for how we determine low-income students or students from low-income families is what's called the family income survey. So we're going to have to get smart in the next couple of years about getting that and getting our families to fill those out, because in the past, the incentive to fill out the free and reduced lunch thing was that, you know, your student would get a free lunch. And when that incentive goes away, when everybody's going to get it. So OSPI has put out some strategies for getting people to fill out the family income survey, even though it won't qualify them necessarily, it won't qualify for a free lunch, but it is important to the school district to have this information, and it funds a variety of other programs. So OSPI has a kind of a best practice, which I got a hold of, and I'll send to Dr. Herndon about how to start collecting these family income survey. The state is going to, I think eventually they said they're going to develop a phone-based app for families to fill this out. So to make it as easy as possible for people to fill it out. And so anyway, that's a fairly major impact on us. And I'll be wanting to kind of hear from kind of how we're going to plan to adapt to that, because it also, the other important bigger funding source on this is what's called E-rate funding. This is funding that we get from the federal government to fund our upgrades of our telecommunication infrastructure. So to give you an idea, over the last 6 years, I was looking up, we've gotten $1.2 million under that program. And that program is, again, dependent on the free and reduced lunch count. That one, since it's a federal program, is not going to be kind of grandfathered in with the last year's free and reduced lunch. So that one's going to be important for us to get this family income survey going as quickly as possible, so that we can get the maximum funding from E-rate. So anyway, that's next week. I'll hopefully report on the impact of some of these other things as the governor signs them. He has the opportunity to veto some of, or potentially portions of it. But anyway, the one about the free lunches, that one's going to be a significant one and should be a big help for us in the long run. But we're going to have to keep track of how we get the surveys, income surveys back from the families. So that's it for the legislation, unless there's any questions.
I have just a quick question, Director Larson.
Sure.
Did they identify the funding source for the additional coverage of meals for all students?
Yeah, my understanding is the state's going to do it.
Yeah. So I'm curious what pot of money they're coming at with that. So usually if they're doing it from one place, they're taking it away from somewhere else. So that's what I'm curious about.
Well, my understanding it's in the budget, the state budget. So it's, out of the general fund. So yeah, this one will be an interesting, a lot of these things they always say the devil's in the details. So
yeah,
you will have to keep a close watch on this one. So I'm really interested as your staff kind of evaluates it, if you see some holes in it or whether we need to bring that back. So.
Yeah, I'm sure this will be a topic for area superintendents as they look at that, because it does, without the free reduced lunch data, it could impact Title I allocations. So, and it's, we want to make sure families don't have to fill out a lot of forms for different data sources. That's the other thing I worry about for something like this. So yeah, I mean, I welcome it. I think it's great. I think it's the right thing to do, that all students should not have to worry about paying for lunch or meals or breakfast. So I think it's great to be able to do that. I just want to make sure that we're able to maximize all the resources for our students and families.
Yeah, the state is, so part of this is, how do you identify all the families that qualify for or low income? And they've gotten more sophisticated. There's a lot of other, TANF, there's programs at the federal level. And so in recent years, I think they've gotten a lot smarter about being able to collect that data. That doesn't get them all, but it gets some of them. And there's an effort going on in the legislature, a multi-year effort to try and get even better at that. So kind of going to all the potential sources of information so that exactly what you say, the families don't have to fill out multiple forms that they fill out for one purpose. Maybe it's school, maybe it's not. That information is collected and then they can automatically get qualified. So anyway, but yeah, it will definitely be an interesting to watch. I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion about it.
Thank you, Director Larson. We'll move along to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda has been approved. It's not anything for board discussion this evening, so we'll move along to number 7, the question only presentation. So there's several topics here, so I'll run through and see if there's any specific questions for each. So for A, any questions for financial forecast? B, the enrollment report. C, monthly budget status report. We got all our answers, our questions answered already. Okay. D, grants.
Yeah, I did have one question on this one. It's probably from Ms. Birdsong if she's on here. Oh, yeah, there she is. Okay. I was looking at these grants on the second page entitled 1-Year Tribal Heritage, K-12 Dual Language Grant, 2-Year Tribal Heritage, and 2-Year Heritage Language Grant. Are these all essentially potentially funding our dual language program? Is that what all of these, they talk about heritage, but are we doing anything related to tribal heritage, or are these basically dual language programs?
So the way that the grant application is written, it covers 3 different areas. And so that's why it has different kind of titles that could be kind of misleading a little bit. And so basically we applied for the piece for the dual language. And I believe that there's 2 grants, both federal, that are 2 years. And then we have a state dual language grant. And if Ms. Chin's on here, she can probably give you a little bit more detail to those.
Yes, thank you for the question. So we received 2-year federal dual language grant. That's good for this year and next year. Yes, anything for the dual language can, including the family engagement events, and anything for dual language can come from that grant. We receive a grant for this year for not tribal, but just heritage. Heritage grant is 60,000. We received for 1 year for this year and another 60,000 for next year. So that's what.
Go ahead.
Yes.
When you use the term heritage, so this could mean it doesn't have to necessarily be tribal heritage, could be Somali language or anything.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
So that's why I have, that's for any language, like heritage class will be 100% offer for the students who are speaking that language, or anybody who are interested. That's the main purpose. But
Okay.
It's not a second language learning. Yeah.
Okay. That's great. And it sounds like we will be, I was a little concerned that we weren't spending very much, but it sounds like we will be able to spend it all before, maybe over the summer or whatever.
Yeah, what I have been trying to recruit teachers. I think everybody's overwhelmed this year and nobody wants to take up more teaching. So I'm talking, and I have a couple people, couple staff that wants to do summer classes. and that can run along with our summer courses. And in addition, we can purchase more in the curriculum books and readers in different language, and then we can use it for next year as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, we'll move along to the inventory assessment, Tukwila and Thorndike Elementary.
I guess on that one, I just wanted to, it's not a question, it's just a comment. So this is where an outside company comes in and evaluates our buildings and looks for you know, some issues that need to be fixed. So I just wanted to compliment the facilities group on, you know, have all the upgrades that need to be made or the fixes that need to be made set up for fixing this summer. So thanks to Liliana and the group for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Early warning indicators. And then finally, dual credits.
Actually, the early warning indicators, I wanted to just ask a quick question. And I think, so there was some issues with our Black and Latinx students. So the early warning, this is the 9th grade failure. So this is one where if a 9th grade student fails a class, then they aren't on track to graduate, basically. And I noticed, you know, our Black and Latinx students were kind of in the low end of that. And in the past, what this has indicated is primarily the classes that were causing the issue were science and math classes. And is that still the case?
We didn't dive that deep into that piece, Director Larson, but we could certainly follow up with that.
Yeah, it would be good to know what and I'm sure the building would want to know, you know. So
Sure.
Thanks.
Anything for dual credits?
Just the one, this is just a compliment for I noticed that in the dual credits, the one that the area in dual credits that was increasing the most was the CTE courses. And so just wanted to recognize the CTE folks and all the staff at Foster for increasing access to our students for what are called, on that graph is called tech prep, but I think it's mostly CTE courses, which are giving students alternative routes to graduation. So nice job to those folks for increasing that. So that's all I got on that one.
We'll move along to item 9, action items. May I have a motion to approve the Human Resources Staffing Report?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I need a motion to approve the inventory assessment for Tukwila and Thorndike.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right. Next item is the approval of overnight field trip request. You may entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Is there any idea how many students are going to be involved in this? This is quite an experience. No idea? Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I don't know that, but I can get that from Mr. Blanton.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Oh wait, I have a question. What is this field trip for? Do you guys aware of like where it's at or like, yeah?
It's in the piece, it's a college campus tour up at Western Washington University in Bellingham. It's over.
Oh,
Is it open to
Oh.
seniors or?
I don't know who again, I don't know who's, it's probably juniors, because if they're seniors, they probably already made their applications.
oh,
Well,
okay.
is there a reason Sam hasn't heard about it?
I don't know. I don't know what the outreach is, and
Our Gear Up, new counselors are supporting our Gear Up students who are signed up through Abbott. They're doing a tour for the students to get acclimated to college.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. Oh, yeah, because I was wondering, because I'm in Avid and I didn't hear anything about like a field trip. I was just,
Yeah, the Gear Up counselors are hired or working with the 9th and 10th graders at this time.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right, all in favor for approval
Aye.
overnight field trip request? Aye, please.
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, we'll move along to item D, approval of resolution 921, censuring of a board director. May I entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. I've written out my comments, so please bear with me while I read it. I wanted to encapsulate all my thoughts. Over the last several weeks, it has been important to work towards a deep understanding of the thoughts being shared by those members of the Tukwila community through conversations I have had, through the statements made to the board, and through personal reflection. I keep coming back to the powerful words shared by the Black Student Union, as these students have captured the essence of what we all strive for in our endeavor to create a climate of racial equity and unity. To quote, "This incident is not the only incident of its kind taking place in the Tukwila School District. This particular incident happened to be recorded and publicly displayed for all to hear upon request. There are others occurring like this one, occurring each day, and we are tired of the silence and the erasure of our names, our identities, and our excellence." And then their letter went on to say, "We invite you, Director Bolajak, to see us, to remember our names, and to authentically learn about our situation in our district. We invite you to meet with us and share how you currently see the world. We would like to know how you represent us, and if you don't represent us, your seat in the board should not be yours no more." They continued with recommended reading. "It is agreed that harm was done, not just by one board member, but by all of us for not speaking up, and we accept that we erred. What a perfect time to honor the request of these insightful students to follow a plan towards improvement. The students have suggested to us our next steps and a direction in how to begin a response to the situation. What better response could we have than to honor their wisdom in following what they see would provide growth and opportunity to move forward towards our ultimate goal of racial unity and equity. My inclination is that in their willingness to meet and have open conversations with Director Bolajak, is that the students are open to working with individuals by being supportive to each of us in pursuing solutions. They have not requested immediate resignation, but whether they have requested an opportunity to work towards growth and knowledge, and to consider alternative restorative practices by working together to foster the racial unity and equity we all want. From what I understand of these young adults, and has been indicated in their message, is that they will be fair and just and truly work to understand and to be understood. We now have an opportunity to honor the willingness of the BSU members to work with Director Bolajak. Therefore, at this time, I would like to table this resolution until Director Bolajak hasn't had an opportunity to meet with the BSU as they have so eloquently requested."
Any other discussion?
I guess can I ask for clarity? Is it on something that was just said?
Yes.
did the BSU specifically say they wanted this resolution to be tabled?
No,
Or is
they-
that you saying that that's what they
is
wanted?
me asking for it to
Got
be
it.
tabled until they have an opportunity to meet with Director Bolajak.
Well, I
How does
think
it-
that as a board, even before I started serving, the board of directors created a policy to implement throughout the district and approve that policy. And serving on that board, I would hope that we all would then model what courageous efforts it takes and to acknowledge oftentimes the voices that are silenced, dismissed, ignored, or even villainized at times. And so this censure is actually the very least that we could do as board directors at our level. But the truth is that there needs to be restorative practices at all different levels of the organization, and that our students, our families, and our staff are deserving of so much better from every single one of us. And so those are my thoughts. I think that once again, it's important to center and not to dismiss very important points and requests from our community. That's what I would want to sort of sit with and center in this conversation. And to also hear from Director Bolajak how the response has already happened. What is different? What is happening here different at this point?
Not to be too parliamentary, but there's a motion on the table, there's a motion on the floor to table. Does that have discussion?
If we would have to first vote down that no, we will not proceed as it is, and then we could go ahead and entertain another motion.
So, yeah, so I don't think my adding to the discussion is appropriate, is it?
Is there anything that you would like to share? Or not? Am I hearing that you don't think it's appropriate?
I'm just thinking parliamentary wise, if there's a motion to table, I'm more than willing to share.
There is not a motion to table. The motion is to approve resolution 921.
I thought,
Currently.
how did Edna finish her statement? I thought it was a motion to table.
No, it was her discussion. But the motion on the floor is approval of resolution 921. It was made by Director Larson. It was second, and now we're doing discussion. That's the procedures I'm aware of.
Okay.
Any other discussion before we vote?
Even though I said at this time I would like to table this resolution, how does that happen then?
If this is voted down. Does anyone else want to add to this? I mean, that's what I'm aware of.
I think yeah, we're getting into the Robert's Rules of Orders experts here. I'm looking at my book on a table motion. It says table is not debatable and takes majority to pass. So I guess my interpretation of it would be, and I don't know, I heard from Director Morris request to table. Is that, so if you're making a formal motion to table, then my interpretation, and maybe Dr. Herndon could help us out here, is that we would vote on that. And then, if it passes, it would be tabled. If it fails, then we move back to the main motion.
All right. Do we need a motion, or no, we'd go ahead and ask for a vote to table.
Do we not need a second for the motion?
I guess I haven't heard anybody actually formally
Do a motion.
say a
Yeah.
motion to table.
I would like to move that we table this resolution until Dr. Bolajek has an opportunity to speak with the BSU.
Okay, so then my little picture here says it's not debatable, so we simply vote on it and then up or down and then go back to the main motion if it fails.
Okay. Does it need to be a roll call vote?
I don't think so.
Okay, all in favor of tabling the motion, say aye.
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 I didn't know how many people wanted to table the motion for censure. So I'll ask for, I can't see everybody either on Zoom. So Director, we'll go down. Director Hoover, would you like to table the motion? Or table the censure? No. Director Larson, would you like to table the motion to censure?
No,
Director Bolerjack, do you want to table the motion to censure?
Yes.
Director Morris, do you want to
Yes.
table the, yes? Okay, so
Yes.
it's 2-2. It's 2-2, and my vote is to not table. We'll go ahead and move forward on the approval of Resolution 921, censuring of board director. All right, all in favor of that? And that does need to be a roll call vote. So Director Larson, do you approve Resolution 921?
yes,
Director Hoover, do you approve of Resolution 921?
Yes.
Director Morris, do you approve Resolution 921?
No.
Director Bolerjack, do you approve Resolution 921?
No.
And I do approve Resolution 921, so the vote carries. We'll go ahead and move along to public comment at this time. If any attendees would like to do a verbal public comment, all you need to do is type your name in the chat. Ms. Kaur, is the chat open?
It is.
Or raise their hand. Is that correct,
Oh.
Bridget?
Is that, okay, yes, or raise your hand. That feature's open tonight.
Dwayne Meyer has his hand raised. I'll move him for public comment.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Meyer. You're on mute, Mr. Meyer.
I'm sorry, through my iPhone, I must have pressed something I don't wish to comment.
Okay, thank you.
No other comments at this time?
I do not see any other hands raised. Please let me
All
have a
right.
moment to check chat. I do not see anything in chat.
All right. We'll go ahead and motion for adjournment this evening.
so move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. This meeting is adjourned. Good evening, everyone.
Bye, everyone.